What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel. Week 6 has really showed us that this college football season is going to be crazy down the stretch, and it's going to lead to a lot more changes than we see this week in my New Year's 6 bowl game and college football playoff predictions. We do have some changes this week, not only to my playoff bracket, but a ton of changes to what I foresee happening in the New Year's 6 bowl game. And again, this is not a projection as of moving forward. I mean, it kind of is, but it is more so as of right now. If I were to put together a college football playoff bracket and a New Year's 6 bowl game field, who would I have representing who would I have filling the 4 slots? Who would I have going to New Year's 6 bowl games? We'll talk about all that and more here in just a little bit, but I just got to thank you guys really quick for the support the channel has seen, and you can continue to help show your support by hitting the subscribe button and ringing the bell. That's the best way that you guys can help support me, and it tells you when videos get uploaded, but you're also supporting my channel right now just by watching the video, and you guys can do more by liking, commenting, sharing, and anything else you guys may be willing and or able to do to help me support my channel. 4 videos today. This is the first one. Let's dive into right now my college football playoff New Year's 6 bowl game predictions. All right, moving on in here, retaking the number 1 spot again. We do have some changes to my playoff bracket this week, but retaining the number 1 spot are the Georgia Bulldogs. They will be choosing to play in the All-State Sugar Bowl. The narrative around Georgia is they are not as dominant of a team as they were a season ago. And while that very well still may being the case here, this is a Georgia team that really started to find their stride last week against the Kentucky Wildcats. I mean, when you go back and take a look at last year, Georgia did struggle out of the gate. They struggled to put away opponents that they should have put away well earlier in the game than they did. Last year it was Kent State. This year it was teams like South Carolina and UAB. And then Georgia got a very, very tough game against the Missouri Tigers, much like what they did last year. Got a very, very tough game against the Auburn Tigers. But I mean, from that point on, from that Missouri game on last year, Georgia dominated teams. And from what I saw against Kentucky, who knows? We very well may see the same storyline play out with the Georgia Bulldogs, but this team is looking very, very dominant. They absolutely demolished Kentucky in every single facet, and for me, that is enough there to retake that number 1 spot because they do have a more impressive resume right now than what the Michigan Wolverines have here at number 2. They will, again, be very, very glad to be playing in Pasadena in the Rose Bowl game. But taking a look at the Michigan Wolverines here, J.J. McCarthy is playing really, really well right now. That stable of running backs, wide receivers, stepping up, playing really well. We know the star that Blake Corum is. Donovan Edwards has struggled, but I believe that he is going to end up finding his stride. This is a wide receiver group that has stepped up in a defense that is playing with their hair on fire. This is a defense that is looking really, really good. And Michigan and Georgia, I think there is no debate, no argument right now. These are the top 2 teams in the country. They have looked the most complete. They have looked the most dominant. These are the 2 teams that should be everybody's number 1 and number 2 right now because they are starting to separate themselves in a class of their own among the list of contenders here this college football season. But figuring out who 3 and 4 is going to be, there are a lot of differing opinions out there, but one constant, at least as of right now, are that the Florida State Seminoles will be making the college football playoff. I've been calling this since the preseason. I've been calling this since June. Heck, I've probably gone back and been calling this since March and April. I've loved this Florida State team. They've stayed in my playoff predictions where they continue to stay because they really are looking like one of the best 4 teams in the entire country. When I take a look at this Florida State Seminole team, this is going to be a very, very fun and interesting second half to their season because they have had some games where they've struggled, right? And while they ended up beating Virginia Tech by, I believe 22 points, they were up 22 to nothing, and Virginia Tech ended up battling back, being 22-17. Florida State was able to pull away, but we have seen Florida State struggle this year, mainly in the game against Boston College. We saw them struggle at times with Clemson, and while I think that's a very impressive win, given the talent that's on Clemson's team, maybe not offensively, but especially defensively, what Jordan Travis and that wide receiver group was able to do there to that Clemson defense, I thought was very impressive, and Florida State's got a lot of opportunities down the road to be able to start racking up some more marquee wins. Florida is still on that schedule. You still have to play Duke. Now, it may be without Riley Leonard, but still a lot of chances here for Florida State. And while there are some other teams in the ACC, like Duke, North Carolina, and Louisville, that can start to challenge Florida State here and are starting to make their case, I think Florida State still, maybe not head and shoulders, but they're definitely still above everyone else in the ACC. I have them making the college football playoff. And then the number 4 spot, look, you can give it to so many contenders right now. You can give it to really anyone that you think is going to come out of the Pac-12 conference. I've seen Oklahoma. I've still seen Texas in people's college football playoff brackets. Right now, I don't feel too confident giving it to either Oklahoma or Texas, not because I don't think they're good enough, or not good enough, I should say, to make the college football playoff. I just feel that there are some teams out there that have provided a little bit of a better product so far than what Oklahoma and Texas have, namely out of the Pac-12 conference. Now, the teams in the Pac-12 are going to really start to get their chances to get marquee wins here down the stretch, right? And one of the big games here coming up this week is Washington and Oregon. Spoiler alert, it's one of those two teams I have, as of right now, getting into the top 4, and it is the Washington Huskies. They are the highest ranked team right now out of the Pac-12. In my mind, I have them at number 5. I know a lot of the polls have them there around 7 or 8. But, I mean, if you have not been impressed with what you've seen from the Washington Huskies this year, I don't quite know what you're watching. Now, do they have that big-time marquee win on their schedule? Not really. However, they do have a Power 5 win in Michigan State, or I should say a non-conference Power 5 win in the Michigan State Spartans, but we know that the train wreck that's going on over there. Boise State is a pretty solid group of 5 teams. Sure, maybe they're not in the conversation to get to a New Year's Six bowl game, but when you take a look at the talent, that's still a really, really talented team, and Washington was able to demolish them. Michael Penix is playing like a Heisman contender. He's got more weapons than the military, quite frankly, to work with offensively, especially with what he has in that wide receiver core with Odunze, McMillan, and Polk, and just the defense is definitely going to get a big test this week here against Oregon. That video is coming out later today. But I think, as of right now, the Washington Huskies are that number 4 team getting into the college football playoffs. So, and we're going to strive through this really quickly here. National championship predictions are still the same. Still think Georgia is going to come away here, get into the national championship game. They really showed it in the last game there against Kentucky that this is still one of the better teams. And in fact, one of the best 2 teams in the country, because they're right there with the Michigan Wolverines. Again, I said it before in this video and I'll say it again. If these 2 teams are maybe not the 2 teams you have making the national championship, but at the very least, not number 1 and number 2, you may want to kind of reconsider some of the ways that you are evaluating teams, because while these 2 teams may not have the most impressive, resumes, while they may not have the most impressive strength of schedules yet, these 2 teams, head and shoulders above the rest, have looked like the best 2 teams in the country, and I'm still sticking with my national championship pick from the preseason. Still think Michigan going to walk away with the national championship once it is all said and done. But Georgia and Michigan, I guarantee you, would be favored over anybody else in the nation on a neutral field, and it'll be a great game if we get those 2 schools there in the national championship. But there's my college football playoff bracket. We'll be revisiting this at the end of the video so you guys can get one final look, but we are going to dive on into here to New Year's Six bowl game predictions, and the first one comes in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. I think this is going to be a very interesting game if this ends up happening here. We got the Oklahoma Sooners, who got a big win in Red River over Quinn Ewers and the Texas Longhorns. Dylan Gabriel looked absolutely fantastic. Oklahoma, especially on that goal line stand, that defense has really stepped up from what it was a season ago. Oklahoma is a very, very true college football playoff contender here. Again, I just feel like Washington put a little bit better of a product than Oklahoma has, and I do feel like they are the better team overall, especially with how explosive their offense can be. We know how explosive Oklahoma's offense can be here, and that defense has stepped up big time. So loving what the Oklahoma Sooners have put onto the field so far this season. Absolutely deserving of a New Year's Six bowl spot. And then when you take a look at the Penn State Nittany Lions over here, hey, this is a Penn State team that I believe coming off of a bye week this past week. Look, you get a gimme game against UMass this week before a very, very big test when you go on the road in Columbus to play the Ohio State Buckeyes. But Penn State can challenge Ohio State. Don't know why that took so long to say. Penn State can challenge Ohio State. Penn State can challenge Michigan, right? This is a Penn State team that is legit. Drew Aller is really good. He has got a lot of weapons. This is a defense that's one of the best in the entire country. Penn State is a team to watch this year. They absolutely will be in a New Year's Six bowl game once this is all said and done, at least. That's how it stands as of right now. The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, this is where I've dropped Texas to. This is where the predictions can get kind of fuzzy because, again, I don't have Texas in my college football playoff bracket. But Texas absolutely still a talented team. They still will get into a New Year's Six bowl game. I have them slotted in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl just because of where every other team falls for me. Now, no question with Texas on making a New Year's Six bowl game. I think Texas is still supremely talented. That game against Oklahoma really tells me nothing that I haven't already thought about this Texas team. It's that they aren't playing down to their level of competition this year, at least to the degree that they have done in some seasons prior. And when I take a look at this Texas team from top to bottom, Quinn Ewers playing really, really well. He has got a lot of weapons, and this is the defense that is absolutely stepping up. But the interesting thing comes with the opponent here, and maybe not the opponent that Texas will end up playing, but just who comes out of the group of five realm, period. Now, when you take a look at the group of five conversation, I did place a very, very safe bet, and I went with the Tulane Green Wave. They were the group of five champion last year and are right there on the precipice of getting ranked in the AP poll, in my poll, and a lot of other polls out there. But there are so many group of five contenders as of right now. Now, we are going to learn a lot, and I'm going to be previewing and predicting a lot of group of five games this week. So buckle up, college football fans, because as interesting as the national conversation will be, the group of five conversation will be very interesting as well. James Madison, Georgia Southern, maybe even a team like Marshall. You got a lot of teams in the Mountain West, Fresno State, Wyoming, and undefeated Air Force. Liberty got a win last night, so they have remained undefeated. Who knows, maybe if chaos ensues, they can be a sneaky contender to get in. I did place the very safe bet, did go with the Tulane Green Wave. They have a big game this week against Memphis. That video is going to be the next one that gets uploaded on the channel. But when I take a look at the group of five conversation, as interesting as the national conversation is, and this was one of my takeaways from this past week, the group of five conversation is also very, very interesting and definitely worth to keep an eye on. So that's my thoughts I have to say on that. But the other two matchups here, I'm pretty confident in, at least as of right now. I do have the North Carolina Tar Heels with Florida State being the team that comes out of the ACC, making the college football playoff. I do think North Carolina here, who as of right now, I think will make the ACC championship game, sitting here in a New Year's Six bowl game. Now, North Carolina does have some competition, right? Louisville is there, and if Duke can hold on here, maybe even pull off an upset against Florida State, and then Riley Leonard comes back and they run the table, Duke could absolutely find themselves in the New Year's Six bowl game as well. Due to Riley Leonard being out, I don't see that happening, but North Carolina's biggest competition is Louisville. But when I take a look at this North Carolina team, yeah, Drake May wasn't putting up the stats that he was last year, but I mean, did you watch the Syracuse game? Over 400 yards passing. He played really, really well. This is the North Carolina team that is not all dependent on the pass, too. They have a really good run game, and the defense has stepped up in some big ways this year as well. I have them facing the Alabama Crimson Tide, so a little bit of a change. I have had the Ohio State Buckeyes in here for a very long time. Now it is the Alabama Crimson Tide making the Capital One Orange Bowl. When I take a look at this Alabama team, I see a team that's finally starting to get things figured out. Jalen Milroe is playing really, really well. I really like the way that Jalen Milroe has come along to play that quarterback position. And then when you take a look at the defensive side of the ball, I think we all knew that Alabama coming into the year was going to be a very good defensive team, and the questions did spark early, but the defense is really starting to figure their stuff out as well, and Alabama's starting to play really well on that side of the football as well. So Alabama here, definitely in a New Year's Six bowl game, and I happen to have it being the Capital One Orange Bowl. Now we take a look at the Verbo Fiesta Bowl here, and a little preview here into a future Big Ten matchup that we will see in some coming seasons, and a game that we have seen here pretty recently as well. When you go back to 2021, these two teams did end up facing off. It's the Ohio State Buckeyes. It's the Oregon Ducks. We're going to start out with the team that's on the left-hand side of the screen here in Oregon. Love the way that the Ducks are playing. Now, maybe telegraphing my prediction a little bit for the Washington and Oregon game. Well, maybe not. You guys are going to have to find out what I am predicting there. Again, that video does come out later on today. But when I take a look at this Oregon team, Bo Nix playing really, really well. It's a team that loves to get to the perimeter, that loves to stretch you out, and is a defense that is mightily improved from a season ago, especially on that defensive front. That secondary is locking teams down as well. This is an Oregon team that by far is going to get their biggest test, and maybe their biggest test of the entire season here when you play the Washington Huskies. Again, that preview prediction video, don't know how many times I can say it. Oh, I'm just so excited to talk about that game. That one's going to come out here later on today. Their opponent I have being the Ohio State Buckeyes. Now, Ohio State, I feel like, is for the most part a pretty complete team. I think Kyle McCord is really starting to grow up. Again, much like Washington, they have more weapons than the entire military when you take a look at that skill position grouping. But before I talk about this is the defense that has taken some massive leaps as well. I believe the only defense in the country that hasn't allowed to play a 40 yards or more. But the weakness with this team being on the offensive line, and this is a team that absolutely can still crack the top 4 in the college football playoff. Even if Michigan were to still get a spot there, much like we saw last year, Ohio State can still break in, get a spot in the top 4. But the weakness on the offensive line is apparent, and it has to get fixed fast because you got teams like Penn State right around the corner, and I don't have to mention what happened last time. I don't have to mention the Buckeye fans what happened last time this team traveled to West Lafayette. So going to be an interesting ride the rest of the way. We'll give you one final look at my predicted college football playoff bracket. This video did go quite a bit longer than these videos normally go, but I did have a lot to talk about, a lot to explain here. Guys, we're going to start getting into the meat here of the college football season. October, November is where it's at. A lot of things are going to start getting a lot more clear. Things are going to start getting figured out, and I guarantee you this playoff bracket will look a whole lot different here in I was going to say 4 weeks, and then I was going to say 4 months, and that's not right. This is the playoff bracket that's going to look a whole lot different here in 2 months. I can guarantee you that. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. Give me your predictions. And hey, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. Got three game preview predictions coming out for you later on today. We're going to start with Tulane and Memphis. That one's coming out next. Goodbye.